Just a bloke in a bar. Hola and welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar. Whoopsie, did I say all the boys? I'm just here in Madrid in a hotel room. Hotel lobby. Didn't want to wake the missus up. We had it all planned. All right, you're going to have to put your headphones on. They might see you sleeping in the background, but I said, you know what? I'll go to the lobby room. It's not too bad. In Madrid, life is good, but also rugby league is good. It never sleeps, baby. Look, is it 6 a.m. in the morning right now? Yeah, it is, but that's the commitment I have to the community. I'm getting up at 6 in Madrid to talk about footy with my great mates, Gurino and Timmy. Guru, how you going, brother?
Going well, mate. World Cup in full swing now, and unlike normal World Cups, it hasn't quite gone to plan so far. And how good's that?
Mate, it's been really interesting, right? Like, it's interesting because, you know, we'll talk about it, but obviously, although the teams that should have won, technically, I know Samoa were favourites, but if I recall correctly, and I may be lost in the haze of holidays, but I think we did say England was still favourites. But it was the way each team won that was really, really interesting. But I got my great man Timmy here. Timmy, how you going, brother?
Very well, Kempy, mate. Good to be along. I'm blinded by the Spanish tan coming through the camera at the moment of yours, mate. Bronzing up over there.
Mate, it's you know what is really funny is that so I rock up. We get off so we go from Dubai to Spain, get off the plane, walking down, like super excited. There's all the custom people there and they look so intimidating with all their fucking kit on, there's guns and everything. And they're checking passports with literally, like they put the thick eye to it and they're literally looking at it like that, like tight as anything. Mrs. rolls in to another, so she goes to like the left and there's a lady that takes care of like the women. She's getting smashed. I walk up, dude just goes, boom, doesn't even look at my passport, just go through, because he thought I was a Spaniola, Timmy. He thought I was one of the people. And what's been really interesting since I've been here, like people ask me for directions, like everyone thinks that like I'm from here because I look like people around here. So these are my people now, I think. I think I might be secretly Spanish.
Spanish with a hint of Greek beak about you, mate.
Exactly. Just European, you know, just the European heritage, even though I have none coming through.
Have you told them that mate, you used to play soccer or what? Have you mentioned it yet?
I just run around saying football. We don't call it soccer anymore, Guru. We call it football now.
You uncultured swine.
Exactly. Mate, it's been absolutely incredible. We saw our Clasico. So for the uncultured swines that are listening, that's Barcelona versus Real Madrid, or Real Madrid versus Barcelona. It's probably the biggest rivalry in world sport. It was absolutely incredible. Full house. I think it's around 80 to 90,000. And just they are singing constantly. It is absolutely incredible. But let's get to the footy. I don't want to bore you with my trip over here to Europe. What an interesting opening round. Now, obviously, we've still got a couple of games to go. But first, I want to talk about what's crazy that we have to talk about it. Desi Hasler sacked from the Manly Sea Eagles. This, to me, look, it may turn out to be great, and you guys both know that we are more than willing on this show to say, we got it wrong. I think this is such a shocking decision, the way it's been handled. I think they've always wanted to do, not always, but for a substantial amount of time, they've wanted to do this. They've tried to force him into him quitting, thinking that he would, I guess, throw his toys out of the cot and say, you know what, I'm not going to bloody take, you know, you're going to put my assistant coach in and change all my coaching methods. He called their bluff and said, you know what, all right, we'll take your assistant coach, everything like that. And still they got rid of him. I think this is just a really, really poor call. I think it's, you know, let's forget his coaching record, which is he's still, right now, his coaching record, it's like the fourth best right now. Like, and Guru, I'm sure you've got the record there. But matter of fact, an argument could be made. It's third above Wayne Bennett over the last decade. Anyway, let's forget all that. This is a club legend. Being sacked a year early because he's a little bit hard to deal with. Desi hasn't changed. Desi's not different to the bloke that won you those premierships. You got him back. So why are you sacking him when you knew what he was like? It is absolutely, it's shocking, and I've said it a million times before, but if they want to look at who's done a good job, they've gone through 8 or so CEOs in however long. The admin, does Manly make that much money? Is the admin doing the best they can do? I think they need to look internally first before they start looking at the coach for the reasons why, as things aren't going so well. Guru, what do you think about the whole situation?
Oh, mate, it's crazy. Like, I remember when I first heard about this as a rumour, it must have been round 20. Like, that's almost 4 months ago I heard about this, and I just thought, there is not a hope in hell they could possibly sack him. No way. It just makes no sense. And, mate, even up until the day that it happened, even when it happened, I looked around and went, that just can't be real. This is the most unbelievable decision. And, I'm sure we'll get to Seabold, but, he's a guy that's reportedly going to come in. I mean, mate, we just saw him in a team that was struggling to sort themselves out and struggling with culture and identity and everything. And like he wasn't, I'd argue it got worse each week instead of improving. I can't understand. One, letting Des Hasler go is unbelievable, but then, I don't know, to turn to Seabold, the whole thing just makes no sense to me, mate. And this is just, my very small experience in business, and, I've been fortunate enough, all the jokes aside and all the carry on aside, Bloke is a successful business. Obviously, we're still really young, and I'm not Mark Boris or anything like that. Let's just get that clear. But I have had experience in dealing with successful people, and sometimes, because that you're surrounded by very, high, successful people that are got not an ego, but you have to have some sort of belief in your way to get to the higher levels. And I just think sometimes that you get around people that think they know best when they need to realize that that's not their area of expertise. And I think that this is a case of people thinking that, well, because he's hard to deal with, therefore, like, all they should be really doing with Desi is asking themselves, is he a high quality coach? If he's hard to deal with, yep, fair enough. But what's best for the club? What is best for the club is Desi Hasler right now. And I think that question has gotten lost in the, I understand in personal relationships, you can feel insulted, you can get angry, all that kind of stuff. But I always ask myself, whenever I ever feel like, something's gone wrong or something isn't treating me right, I always ask myself, what is best for Bloke in a bar? Put my own feelings aside. I might be angry. I might be frustrated. I might want to go, you know what? I've got a bit of power here. You can fucking do this or you can do that. Put that aside, and I say, what is best for Bloke? And I just think that, like, Manly hasn't done that in this situation. There's a group of people that haven't gone, you know what is best for Manly right now? Timmy, what do you think about the whole situation?
Yeah, just at Manly for years and years. I mean, they've had so much success on field, and I can't believe all that success that they've had hasn't translated to a more stable in-house at the club and among the admin. And it's just years and years of, there's always an issue going on in-house at Manly, and just seems to be finger pointing. And if anything half goes wrong, there's someone's in strife for it. In this case, it's as if Desi Hasler's been scapegoated for a poor end of season, the jersey saga, which is just the magnitude of that. Like, had that not happened, Manly probably make the 8. All things probably good and well, and who knows where we'd be now, whether Desi'd still have his job. And maybe Desi's been scapegoated for everything that's gone on. That's probably the way I see it. But you look at the position became pretty well untenable for Desi in the sense that, there was talking of him suing the club and all these issues even before he'd been sacked, or at least to the public. So, it's very, very sad way to see him go. What ramifications are this going to have? At least now he's gone, they can start to rebuild and move on from this saga. But, the other $1 million or probably $2 million question is, what do the Trebojevic boys think of all this? And, they're probably quietly seething a little bit themselves or getting sick of the instability. So it's an interesting few months to play out and see where we end up.
Look, it's the crazy thing is we've seen this before. They let go of Desi. Although I thought Tubes did a relatively good job, he had a much better squad to deal with than what they're currently dealing with at the Manly Sea Eagles. But basically, Manly, if they lose their main player in Tom Trbojevic, you could argue essentially aren't a top 8 side. Maybe they would have slipped in without the whole jersey saga. I'd argue they've got a weaker squad than when they let go of Desi originally. Anyway, look, to be fair, as we said, if they've made the right call,
then good on him. And it's a gutsy call. Like, we have to look at Rabbitohs. I know there wasn't as much negative feeling around the Rabbitohs for sure, but Demetrio has been fantastic. He's proven a lot of people wrong. Now let's get into the Seabold situation. Look, This is coming from someone that I was pretty critical of Seabold when he was at the Broncos. There was a lot of stuff that I felt I just disagreed with the way he did things. Just because he was, not great at the Broncos, I wouldn't write him off as a coach yet. I wouldn't say, he can't coach because he had poor time at the Broncos. But I would say, with all the information we have, I can't believe that they're most likely going to go with Seabold. Let's say I was Seabold or someone wanting to sign Seabold, I would have wanted to see Seabold go away, get success, whether it's in New South Wales Cup, the Super League, as a head coach, before I would re-sign him. In reality, he's gone away and been an assistant here or there and just walked straight back into a Manly Seagulls coach. Now, he's walking into a squad that, although probably has, maybe better leaders in Tom Trbojevic, Jake Trbojevic and DCE, the Broncos I think they were 5th or 6th the year that he came in. And then they went on to make the 8 and get beaten by a record margin. So he's going on to a club with less resources that finish in a much lower position. Again, I'm not saying his coaching career is over at all. I think that, he's so young, he's got so long, and this could be the making of him or what he went through. But it's just super surprising that Seabold is the answer to this, when you've already got a guy like Des Hasler sitting there. What do you reckon about the Seabold situation, Guru?
Yeah, as I said, he's probably not the guy that I would have gone for, especially when you had Des. Like, you had a premiership winning coach, a guy that's been successful. But I also think the reality of the situation is that, mate, if Turbo's hamstring holds up, I could fucking coach this team and they could be successful. So I really do think that, I think that the admin at Manly know they're in a position where if we can just get this one guy fit, I don't think it matters who coaches them, and I think they'd be leaning back sort of going, as long as he's fit, we're going to look like we've made the right decision. So it's an interesting situation. But as you said, if something does happen that he gets injured or something this year, like I personally thought that Des did, when Turbo got injured, I said to you two, they won't make the finals, no way. 5 weeks later, I thought, I was wrong. Des has got this sorted, they're going to make it. The jersey debacle hits. Like, if something else goes wrong for them next year with Turbo's out, it's going to be a huge test for Seabold. It's going to be massive. And, history's shown us at Manly that if there's pressure on and they're not winning, we know whose head's going to fall. And then it's going to be tough for Seabold to build himself back up after that. But I think there's a really good chance that if Tom does play the whole season, they're potentially a top 4 team. I think they're definitely a top 8 team if Tommy plays the whole season. So interesting to see how it plays out, mate.
Yeah, look, I agree with you in regards to, Tom Trbojevic and DC, Jake Trbojevic. They're so good. But, and look, this is no disrespect to Seabold as a person, but look at the regression that young Broncos side made as players when he took over. And I know that's harsh, but it's the reality. There is no denying that young group of men regressed massively in that couple of years and are only just starting to come around. And I'm not saying that Tom Trbojevic will regress. He's a senior player. They've got senior players in key positions. But there is a chance there is at least some regression. Now, he could have improved. It may have been, it could have been the Wayne Bennett shadow that hurt him. There's a million reasons why it happened. But the reality is that Broncos squad regressed over those years and went from every good pundit in the game, or at least every pundit that's taken seriously, saying this is the best young forward pack we've seen in 20 years, to these guys are like not even arguably Q Cup standard at some stages. Timmy, thoughts about the Seabold situation?
Yeah, I'm probably not as critical of it as a lot of people, and the main reason being that I think Seabold, well, we've sort of said all season with this NRL coaching merry-go-round, there's not a lot of great options out there available. Now, there's a few that, you would argue that may have been better fits, but there's not a lot out there. I'm willing to give Seabold a little bit of a benefit of the doubt about his time at Brisbane. Like, it is just a whole new kettle of fish, that club. You go into the cauldron of Red Hill that we've seen ever since he was sacked by the Broncos, that he's already left the club, whatever you want to call it. that, they've still regressed. They haven't been any better. They've had this in-house fighting. They haven't got back on track. Now, just before that, he was the Dally M Coach of the Year at South Sydney, which is a big, big thing. He took them within a whisker of making an NRL Grand Final. He's still, I suppose, relatively young young enough in his coaching career. As you said, Kempy, would love to have seen him go and maybe take over a Super League side the last year or two and have a bit of success there. But at the same time, he's spent time in and around the NRL still. He's been at Manly before in an assistant role, so he'd know the club well enough, obviously enough for the club to back him and appoint him as a head coach now. So, look, while he might not be perfect, I think he's a very intelligent fella. He's shown that he can get success in the NRL. I think he would have learnt a hell of a lot from that Brisbane experience. It was a tough one, but he'll have learned his lesson. So I don't mind Seabold.
Yeah, I agree with you in regards to he's so young. Like you can't just write his whole career off now. It's more just like what's the reality of that's happened in the last 2 to 3 years. But I will say, so he coach in 2018 or 19 at the Rabbitohs?
18, yeah.
19? 18 or 19?
18.
18. Okay, so I just want to read you out this squad. So this is August 29, 2019. So relatively late in the year. Oh, man, now it's not loading. Anyway, you had Alex Johnston. Oh, my God, that is so annoying. Just for a sec, boys. Anyway, the squad that he had, and this is I'm not being disrespectful, I actually thought, I'm pretty sure back in that year, I thought he was the coach of the year. I thought he was outstanding. But the squad he had was something pretty special. I mean,
do you want me to read out that team to you, mate?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so AJ at fullback, Campbell Graham on one wing, Robert Jennings on the other side, GI and Gagai in the centres, Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds in the halves, Tom Burgess and George Burgess up front, Cookie at 9, Johnny Sutton in the back row with Angus Crichton, Sam Burgess at 13, then your bench, Cam Murray, Dean Britt, Tavita Totola. It was a pretty handy side, wasn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, so I wonder, when you stack that up against the Manly side currently, it's chalk and cheese, and that's not disrespectful. I know Tom Trbojevic is unbelievable, but again, the reality is even with DCE, Reynolds in that period had a far more successful run than DCE ever had during that period. And I know DCE is one of the best sevens in the game, but in reality, Reynolds over the last 5 years, Reynolds' resume is a bit better in regards to club footy. So it is a really interesting task. It's another really interesting one is like with Seabold's coaching style, he is very, scientific and, forward thinking and, looks to the future. Manly are renowned for not having many resources. Trent Barrett literally, the reports anyway were that was one of his biggest issues is that he felt he didn't have the resources needed. Is this a case of does Seabold even have the resources he's going to need to be the kind of coach he wants to be?
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up because I remember when Trent Barrett walked in there and he was going to be the next hotshot young coach that was going to take them into the next era, and mate, it was an absolute shit fight there, and then they completely 180'd it, brought back in Des, and all of a sudden they're successful and relevant all over again. So I feel like at the Manly Seagulls, they're a very unique franchise because things just have to be done in a Manly way. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just there's a Manly way to go about things that only seemingly Manly former players and whatnot understand. The only guys that have been successful there have been Jeff Tuvey and Des Hasler, realistically, over the last 20, 25 years. It's such a unique situation. That's what worries me with bringing someone from the outside. Granted, he has spent some time there as an assistant coach, but yeah, I'm still very nervous about it.
Yeah. So look, put it this to be clear though, I think, and we'd all agree with this. We hope Seabold goes well. We hope he goes well. There's no denying that he's young. He had success at the Rabbitohs. It was a very good squad. He's been in really good systems as assistant coach. Maybe the Broncos situation, there was a lot of off-field stuff that we aren't aware of. I hope he goes well. I really do. You never wish anyone bad luck going into a new gig. And maybe it's one of the great redemption arcs. It really is. But unfortunately, when you look at the facts of the coaching record over the last 3 or 4 years for Anthony Seabold, it hasn't been the best. But maybe it was just we talk about you've got to be a manly man. Maybe he just wasn't the Broncos man that was needed. He didn't have the right connections in the media and, in-house, even though he actually was at the club. I used to play with him in the Clydesdales. Anyway, so look, wish him the best for sure. It's really interesting times. It's not the crazy thing is he actually has a contract, I'm pretty sure, with England Rugby Union, so it's not a for sure thing. But the owner has literally already come out and said that he wants him as a head coach. So I'd be very surprised if he's not. What are we going to say, Guru?
Oh no, it's just great. I was just going to throw in there as well with Seabold. Like as much as at the Broncos, it felt like a lot of those players were regressing. Matty, you can probably touch on it more, but when he arrived, that's when Cody Walker really went to a new level, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Cody played Origin the next year, which was obviously off the back of that 2018 season. So, yeah, you're right. We had like Cody, Reynolds, Burgess, Inglis, all of those guys.
Yeah, so as nervous as I am about it, there are plenty of positives throughout his career as well. There's no doubting that.
Yeah, for sure. Like Cody obviously definitely went better, but they did just land in the same spot as they were the last year, which was a prelim final. But you're right, though. You're right. Cody definitely, and you know what? Cam Murray and that, they all say that Campbell Graham as well, all say that Seabold had a massive influence on bringing them through. So, yeah, you're right, Guru. There is evidence.
I was just going to say, in fairness, that was the first of the 5 prelims that South made. The reason they didn't make the prelim the year before was because I think it was the squad was it was the same squad, but I think they were tired of Madge's coaching. So he inherited the same squad, but I think we thought he was the coach of the year because he did take the team to a prelim and they actually weren't there the year before. So
oh, really?
They finished 12th the season before. So yeah, I'm still very nervous about it. Don't get me wrong, but there are positives on there for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I take that back. I apologize. I was wrong. You could make the argument that he had a lot to do because he was assistant coach, that he had a lot to do for setting that squad up to get them into the prelims for the next 5 years. So you're right. If you go back and say, okay, well, Broncos was, definitely not good. If you take a bird's eye view, you could say 50-50. He had some really, really strong success and just poor. So, as I said, good luck to the bloke. There's evidence. You're right, Guru. You're totally right. There is absolutely evidence that he can develop players and make them. You know what it is? It's just obviously being a former Bronco player. I'm more focused in on the Bronco situation, and then obviously Matty being a Rabbitohs fan, he was more focused on the Rabbitohs situation, so he'd know more about it.
But as a non-Broncos player, shockingly to everyone, and a non-South Sydney fan, that's what I focus on as well. I'm sort of looking for some silver linings out of this because I do think if Turbo is fit, it'll be okay.
Yeah. Look, it's hard to. You're right. Look, if Turbo is that good, he really is. On his day, is arguably one of the best players we've ever seen. Yeah. So as we said, good luck to him if he does get the gig. Manly going really well, especially like last year when they went really well. They're super exciting. They're so likable now with Tom Trbojevic, Jake Trbojevic. So yeah, good luck to him if he gets it. Now let's get into just wait. Actually, I've got to give a quick shout out while I'm over here. While I've been traveling, July Luggage, they sent me some free kit, has been absolutely fantastic. Got it off the missus, so the missus hooked the whole situation up. Look, I'm not a luggage guy, guys. If you didn't know, I'm not a luggage guy. I'm not deep into me luggage brands, but I will say going up and down stairs and jumping over crevices, and you know how sometimes the wheels get stuck and it's a punish. It's an absolute punish. These are really sturdy wheels. They're lightweight. So if you want some luggage, guys, July Luggage, seriously, best luggage I've ever used. And that's not even GNR. It's been fantastic. So that's July Luggage. And we've been carting that everywhere. Super lightweight, heaps of compartments. Plus, obviously, you don't have to worry about things, the wheels not working and wheeling and all that kind of stuff. Also, Justice Hooney versus Kiki Toa. Luatelli fighting on November 4th at Brisbane Nissan Centre. Grab your tickets from Ticket Tech. Now, Justice Hooney is the guy that absolutely towed up Paul Gallen. And I mean, honestly, Gal doesn't get enough respect for stepping in the ring with Justice Hooney because not only was he the best young Australian heavyweight boxer we had, he's one of the best heavyweight prospects we've seen in a very long time. And so for Gal to get in the ring with him was incredible. But Justice Hooney, if we have any, well, not any, because there's I've forgotten his name. I think it's Dempsey. Apologies if I've forgotten his name, but he is one of the big up and coming heavyweights that we have. I'm pretty sure he's a heavyweight. His hands are super fast. He's exciting. He's got a unique set of skills that you don't often see with heavyweights. So Justice Huni versus Kikitoa Luatelli, fighting November 4th at Brisbane's Nissan Arena. You can grab your tickets from Ticketek. As I said, guys, there's a real chance that this kid goes on and does something really special. Very humble, very respectful. I've met him before. Great kid, and got so much talent. And I would make the argument that he'd have some of the fastest hands in the heavyweight division. He is super impressive. So it'd be almost like if you were to go to one of George Kambosos' early fights. If this kid keeps on going on the track that he's going on, to go to one of his early fights and say, I saw him fight, he was coming through, be sick. And he's going to be exciting. He's not a heavyweight that kind of just waits for that one punch knockout. He puts them together, gets the job done. So that's November 4th at Brisbane Nissan Arena, apologies. You grab your tickets from Ticketek. Also, grab a pair of budgie smugglers as we head into summer. Ned Brockman completed his run across the country yesterday. You can pre-order his special edition budgie smugglers now. Now, this has popped up into my feed and that. This bloke, Ned Brockman, one of the great names, ran 100 Ks per day he ran from Perth to Sydney, I think.
Yeah, Perth to Bondi in like 47 days or something crazy.
Now, I want to get a Bumblebee check on him and a Gary Jack check, because the Bumblebees and the Gary Jack would be absolutely off the bone. So, Ned Brockman, if you hear this, mate, can you send me a Bumblebee and a Gary Jack check for us? Because Jesus Christ, what an incredible feat by this gentleman. 100 Ks a day, and he did it for, I think, homelessness, and he raised $1 million. $1 million. And absolutely amazing. And it's brought to you by Budgie Smuggler. They get behind battlers. Budgie Smuggler, they get behind us as well. Absolutely fantastic business, guys. So get behind Budgie Smuggler, because they get behind blokes that get the job done. They turn up. And Ned Brockman, bloody oath, he turned up. So budgiesmuggler.com.au, you get your special edition Ned Brockman budgies. As I said, they support us, so support them, and they're a fantastic business to work with, guys. They really are, and they're Aussie. Also, Porters New South Wales, $52 cases of Bloke in a Bar. Get down to your nearest Porters Liquors for the best price on your favourite lager. Again, that is $52 in all Porters Liquors in New South Wales. And as you guys know, we're in every single Celebrations, Porters Liquor, IJ Plus Liquor, and Bottle O in New South Wales and ACT, plus hundreds of other stores. So grab a case of Bloke in a Bar beer. Now, just quickly, did you guys get a chance to watch Kambosos versus Haney at all?
I didn't get a chance to. You, Timmy?
I saw the highlights, but not live.
Yeah, look, so Kambosos goes down again to Haney. Look, again, it was quite a dominant display by Haney, but there were moments of brilliance from Kambosos that, could have changed the tide. But Haney was just, I think we're really starting to appreciate Haney isn't just a good 135er. He's a pound for pounder, and he's a really big 135. I actually don't think we'll see him again in 135. He cuts a lot of weight. He's very rangy. His body is more suited for 140. So it's a mixture of obviously much better, like not much better, but he's a better boxer than Kambosos currently. But I think that when Kambosos begins to fight guys that are more his size, he may have more success. So Kambosos isn't over by any stretch. He just got beaten by, seriously, one of the pound-for-pound best boxers in boxing right now. Haney is still 23 years old. We may be watching the trajectory of one of the greats. So no shame at all for Kambosos in losing. He went out like a warrior, went the whole distance against one of the best boxers in boxing right now. So shout out to Kambosos. He is an absolute warrior. And it's going to be interesting to see, where he goes from here. There's so many fights. As I said, I can't really see Haney fighting again at 135 unless maybe there's one or two fights left in him. But that weight cut just looks big for him. So massive shout out to Kambosos. He was gallant. He was a warrior. He could have easily taken the easy way out. He didn't. So much respect. But let's get to Rugby League World Cup games. England versus Samoa. Give me your thoughts, mate.
Yeah, I don't know about you boys, but I got to put my hand up here. I underestimated this English team, unbelievably, to be honest with you. I thought Samoa would get the job done here. To see them get done in the fashion they did, it was crazy. And you know, we look back at it now and we go, okay, it's been playing in England. They're the home nation. They've added Victor Radley. There's all these things that point to they should have been successful, but to score 60 points, crazy. I don't know how Samoa are going to bounce back from this. In the last 12 minutes, it was 28-0. That is just crazy. I couldn't believe what I was watching. The young fella from England, Jack Wellesby, I haven't seen him play before. Fuck, he's a talent, isn't he, Timmy?
He's a gun, mate. Yeah, and it's a 21-year-old. He's won, I think, three Super League titles for St Helens, back to back. His first one, I think, was 18 or 19, and he scored the match winner in extra time for them. And he was exceptional on the weekend. And I think a lot of the pressure going into the World Cup for England was, you know, do they have the firepower? Do they have the flair to compete with the best of the best? They, as Kempy mentioned earlier, they started underdogs in this game remarkably, and he and Georgie Williams were phenomenal in this game. England completed 90%. They played pretty high percentage footy, nothing too expansive, and geez, it's given a really big rethink of the entire tournament. Within 80 minutes of it, I think everyone was second guessing themselves and their predictions from before the tournament.
Yeah, look, England, I think they read the media. I think they listened to, and including guys like us. Now, look, I'm pretty sure we still had them as favourites. Again, apologies if I'm wrong, but absolutely didn't think that they would be looking this good. I would actually say, out of all the games I've watched, they were easily the most cohesive side. Easily. As you brought up, Timmy, they completed at 90%, which is the highest completion of any side so far by a substantial margin. They were absolutely outstanding. And it's going to be interesting because right now, put it this way, right now, if the grand final was played like that game just before, I'd have to say they might win it due to the cohesion of the game. I think that it's going to take time for New Zealand and Australia to slowly gel things together. But I wonder whether it's interesting because Australia and New Zealand have played together arguably just as much as England. But I just think that there was something about that English side as if they'd been playing together for a very long time. And so I don't know whether they've been doing a lot of, communicating a lot during the Super League season, or I'm not sure, but they looked easily the most cohesive. And just like little things watching, like there's so many years where you go, okay, England, their forward pack, probably world-class, backline, maybe not so much. Their back five were absolutely outstanding. And I'd even make the argument that their back five was probably the best back five of the weekend so far. Sam Tompkins, he's always a threat, really, really interesting. Tom Mackison, a try assist, really strong ball carrying. What's really interesting is you would have easily looked at that Samoa side and said, that back five is going to absolutely dominate this England side because that back five is like probably the best back five. Well, you could make the argument of the best back five in the comp. I still think Australia probably have it. But when you've got Tango, To'o, Suali'i, you got who was the other? Crichton.
Stephen,
you know what I mean? We're talking about the back-to-back premiership backline. Outside, obviously, Dylan Edwards, but you put Suali'i in there, and you a lot of people would, I know Edwards had the year of his life, but a lot of people would probably pick Suali'i before him. Obviously Edwards' experience would get him ahead, but again, we're talking about Suali'i here. So I will say I absolutely underestimated England. They look fantastic. Callum Watkins, if I'm a club that needs a centre in the NRL, I am absolutely chasing this guy. He's big, he's powerful. Herbie was really good, but I thought like Herbie and Callum were both fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But I thought Callum Watkins was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. Jake Wellesby, very, very talented kid. I'll be surprised if there aren't NRL clubs looking at trying to get him across. Now, don't. If you're an NRL club and you don't have a 7, don't even bother. He seems like a player that needs a dominant 7. George Williams, it's almost when you see him play like that. Now, by all reports, he's had a rather quiet season, but then you see him play like that and you go, this bloke should be in the NRL. Like, okay, you've got Anthony Milford and you've got Luai on the other side. Anthony Milford has a great career. Last few years, not so great. But if you ever needed evidence that you need a proper 7, go and watch England versus Samoa, because George Williams directed the team around the park, got them to the right spots. And yet Anthony Milford, although he's not a 6, you would say, okay, on paper, you'd probably take Anthony Milford over George Williams if you looked at their career. But George Williams is a genuine 7, and look at the difference. He was absolutely outstanding. So hats off to England. They reacted unbelievably well to all the not negative media, but I just think that I think we mentioned it before, Guru. We just don't watch the Super League, so it's very hard to make a judgment on how good these players are. But I tell you what, the only thing that you put it this way, right now with their cohesiveness, if New Zealand and Australia don't get it together in their cohesiveness, England are a chance. Now, if Australia and New Zealand get it together in their cohesiveness, I think it'd still be a good game, but I think that they've just got a bit too much firepower to beat England. But right now, I think they looked as cohesive as a club side that has been together for a while. Really exciting times for England.
The one that I really enjoyed was seeing Sam Tompkins. I mean, he has been over there for so long in England, playing unbelievable football for so long. And I think down here in Australia, we saw such a brief little snippet of him at the Warriors. And, he was nothing like what I thought he'd be at the Warriors. But there's been a lot of guys that have gone to the New Zealand Warriors and have underachieved over time. There's no doubting that. I think down here we get the wrong impression of this guy because he has been so dominant over there for so long. I think he's played rugby union as well for England. I'm pretty sure he's a dual international. So to see him as captain, and hopefully they can be really successful this year, because I think a lot of people down here have the complete wrong understanding of the sort of footballer this guy is.
I totally agree. And, all jokes aside, obviously, even myself struggled over the Warriors, not even as if I'm better than Tompkins, but when I was at Warriors, I struggled. So sometimes it's just the club, honestly, just the club you're at, or sometimes it's the type of footy or it's the systems or whatever. Tompkins was outstanding, but Victor Radley, we said he would add a lot to this side. Oh my God. He was as influential as Isaiah Yeo is for the Penrith Panthers. He was the glue in the middle. He took them from a side that usually struggles to have that little cream on the top around the middle and be able to move the ball to the edges when they need to a side that it's the best I've seen England look in. Honestly, I can't remember the last time they looked this good. Timmy?
Yeah, I think just quickly touching on George Williams, and I know it's a World Cup podcast, but you've got to take every chance you can to wrap the Canberra Raiders. and as a Canberra fan at the time, I was sort of concerned about George coming in as he came in as more of a ball running 5'8" when he landed at the Raiders. And there was a few concerns about him alongside Jack White and who directs the team and how this is going to work. Now, they were fortunate they had another Englishman in, Josh Hodgson, who sort of ran the show for them, but I think that forwarded his evolution as a halfback, which we saw the reward that's come out of it in one game against Samoa on the weekend. And he was a really good controlling half, which I don't think was probably an aspect of his game a couple of years ago. But that was my one query, or one of a few queries going into England, going into the World Cup, was do they have that number 7 to get them around the park? We know how good George is with ball in hand in his running game. But he was phenomenal, and now, that's a big green tick for me for them going forward. And yeah, I just think England, they gave a real good shake. The entire side. There was one try at the end there. I think Milf had just come back on from his sin bin, and it was the Mackinson down the sideline, threw it back into Elliot Whitehead, and it summed up the entire game for me. I know it was late in the game. I know Samoa were gassed, but there was about 5 pommies queuing up to score that try. They were just wanted every little piece of that game, and Samoa just had their hands on their hips going, get us out of here. So, yeah, encouraging signs for the Poms.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people will say, they lost a man, all that kind of stuff. Look, I'm sorry, but I felt like England were dominant from the very first minute. Yeah. I really did. I thought they were. When you look at the Samoa side and you look at the England side, I think it's such. You go, okay, here is a side that clearly is all on board with the coaching plan. There's systems in place that they're all believing in. Then you look at the Samoa side and you're going, these guys aren't on the same page. They've got no direction. They've got all this talent, but nowhere to direct it towards. I guess just quickly, let's talk about Samoa, or not just quickly. Look, as we said earlier in this podcast, guys, I am more than willing in a while, in 6 months or at the end of the World Cup or whatever, to put my hand up and say, I got it wrong. And I think we all are. And I don't mean it's disrespectful to anyone in the Samoan admin or whatever, but I personally think they need a massive overhaul up top. This isn't, a lot of people go, oh, okay, it's the first game of the World Cup and, you know, we're building into things. Samoa have been disappointing for years now, for years. And it isn't because of the talent. Their talent is fucking unbelievable. I personally believe that there can no longer be, oh, yeah, we're just building towards this. Now, look, again, apologies if there's people in the admin that haven't been there for long or they've just come in. But the head coach has been there for a while now. And so, personally, it's just not working. If they get beat by England, I don't think anyone has an issue by that. But them to get 60 put on them with the side that they have is unacceptable, in my opinion. I just think that, I personally think they need an overhaul. Happy to if they pull it all together and they go well in the World Cup, I'll put my hand up and go, boom, got it wrong. Apologies, you got it right. You're the winner. But right now, I think they need an overhaul in regards to coaching stuff. Just in regards to the whole system. Apologies.
And I mean, mate, it wasn't that long ago that we had Matty and Andrew Johns putting their hands up to coach this side. I'm sorry, do they concede 60 if those two are coaching? Oh, I personally don't think there's a world where they do.
And Sonny Bill was a part of the coaching staff?
Mate, it's a completely different story. I mean, it's been, the worst kept secret in rugby league for a long time that, the players don't, get along with the coaching or agree with what's going on there. And I think the other day was so evident. Mate, they've got two State of Origin superstars running out in the front row. They got belted through the middle. I don't understand how that happens.
When you look at that forward pack in that team, this is unthinkable, the score. And I know they lost a player or whatever. 60 points with a team that was, $1.50 favourites. I think they need an overhaul. I really do. I think the time has come. Like, obviously, they can't make that decision now. But I think that there cannot be any more of this, oh, yeah, we're building towards something. What building has been done over the last 3 or 4 years for Samoa? They're in the same position they were, but they've got a squad full of absolute superstars. Timmy, your thoughts?
Yeah, just first, it was the ramifications for this game of football were there to set up the entire World Cup. If England lose, they're likely playing Tonga in first week of the knockout stage, and the host could have gone out in straight sets, which would have been very detrimental to, I think, the whole World Cup. Samoa, now that they've lost it, that means they now will take on Tonga. And just the manner of the defeat means they're now going to have 2 games to find their groove before that clash, likely clash against Tonga, where they'll play France and Greece. Like, how much momentum can you get from those games? Had they lost in a tight one and then they'd gone and put a score on France and Greece, then went to the quarterfinal against Tonga, you'd be going, all right, they can build on it, they can build. But as Guru said, I'm not really sure how they come back from this one. And to touch on your point, Kempy, about just the in-house stuff and an overhaul, they've had a few excuses over the years on field and team list being solid without being great. And, you could point a few fingers at the in-house, off-field sort of stuff. But the side they ran out with on the weekend was exceptional. And now it's really hard not to point a few fingers at the in-house, because the team that ran out was probably as cohesive as any other sort of side in the World Cup, because they had half of the Penrith squad there, particularly all in one edge. And to dish out that, I don't know what's going on, mate. That was crook.
Could you imagine being one of these young Greece front rowers? Next Monday they have to play this Samoan side, taking on Junior and Josh after getting their pants pulled down like that. You'd be terrified, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, mate. And that's the thing. Like, these players are proven players. So you can't sit here and go, oh, well, it's purely the players' fault. Now, obviously the players need to go out and play well, but these guys have proven it year after year how good they are. Unfortunately, at the moment, there just has been no evidence from, leadership of Samoa that they are the right job. Like, tell me over the last 3 or 4 years when you've ever gone, yeah, Samoa's they're really improving. Like I can't remember it. And again, I'm sorry if there's a game that there is, but I can't remember it.
I feel like over the last 4 or 5 years, every other team has been just steadily improving, outside of Tonga, who have just exploded, obviously. But Samoa, you constantly look at their side and go, oh, yeah, they're getting better. But every time they step onto the field, you've got to ask, are they actually getting better or are they getting worse?
Well, this was meant to be their time. And you look at games we get to shortly, but Fiji, who were really impressive against Australia, Lebanon, who were really good in their clash against New Zealand, Samoa were the ones that were like, they have no excuses. This is their time to make a scene at the World Cup, and they were the biggest disappointments of all of them.
Guys, I am more impressed with Lebanon
100%.
than I was with... Like, think about this, guys. Lebanon. We're talking about a country that barely plays rugby league, has what, 2 or 3 NRL players? Adam Dewey, Mitchell Moses, Mansour. That's about it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you could have picked their best front rower, it would have been Twal, and he wasn't available. So, like, they're not even at full strength with what they've got.
And they were more impressive than Samoa. Now, they're just... And what's crazy as well is New Zealand is a much better side on paper than England is, in my opinion. So Fiji, we spoke about Fiji. We actually said Fiji looks like they've made more progress over the last few years. I'm sorry, but I think Samoa need an overhaul. I really do. I think they may have made the wrong call, whether it's Matty, Andrew, Sonny or something. But unfortunately, I think they may have made the wrong call because I can't see any evidence of improvement, even though their squad is freaking stacked. Stacked. I mean, you've got guys like this is coming off the bench. Spencer Linu, Martin Tapau, Tuolangi. Like, what are we talking about here? Yeah. Oh my, yeah, I don't know. As I said, you obviously the players have to have responsibility. There's no denying that. They absolutely could have been better. They should have made the errors that they made. I think they completed at a really low rate. They completed at 72%, which isn't shocking, but it's definitely not great. So I don't want to excuse the players at all here. They didn't play the way they should play, but I think that getting beaten by 60, something's got to change.
Has Mills copped a suspension for that late shot?
I would assume he will. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But you've also got Hamiso's injured. You've got Hamlin Welle's injured. You've got Tyrone May's injured as well. So they've got to find guys to fill those gaps with now.
With 2 soft games coming up, I assume Chanel Harris-Tavita probably comes into the side at halfback. There was a lot riding on MILF, unfortunately, because we knew that they had the elements to be a very successful team, but that organising halfback was probably, it was the pressure spot for Samoa, and Milf didn't have a great game. He now has Harris-Tavita, who's a solid enough halfback. Again, probably not your traditional organising half that they're after, but he's a very good defender. Milf missed a couple of ordinary tackles in that game, and definitely not Milf's fault. They lost by that margin, but he didn't help the cause. So with 2 soft games coming up, if Harris-Tavita comes in and plays well, Milf might not start a game for the rest of the World Cup. Could be wrong, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, you'd have to think with Tyrone May out now, he will stay in the side somewhere. Yeah. One of them will be the 14 and not. Do you consider, I know he's not a 7, but do you shift Jerome Luai to 7 and hand him the keys potentially?
See, I probably would have gone with that originally. Yeah. I think Luai is closer to a 7 than Milford, especially with Milford. We have tried this. How many years have we tried this? Seriously, how many years have we tried this with Milf? He is not an organising 7. Like, I would not have made that selection if I was a coach, because I would have been like, okay, Luai might not be a 7, but we don't really have as much evidence that he isn't a 7. Whereas Milford, it's like, it's there. It's like, it's year in, year out. At least with Luai, we're going with a guy that has a lot of form coming into 7. Now, don't get me wrong, Luai didn't play the best either, but oh man, it's frustrating because I'm excited as anything for Samoa. And look, the positive for Samoa is regardless of result, you cannot deny that they have a squad to move forward. It's right there. They've got the ingredients. Now it's just finding that last ingredient in regards to team cohesion, and they should be able to work it out. But surely they got a Samoan 7 that, maybe he's not the flashiest, but he can get him around the park.
And that's the scariest thing when you put it in a vacuum. You go, okay, the fullback is, in my opinion, a first-choice Australian winger. You've got two centres that won a premiership a few weeks ago. You've got, in my opinion, the best winger in rugby league, Brian Toto. You've got a 5'8" that's won back-to-back premierships. You've got two State of Origin front rowers. How much better is... Like, this is the best it has ever been for Samoa, and they're still incredibly disappointing. I hope they can turn it around, but fuck, I'm nervous about it.
Yeah, I agree, Guru. It's and the people that they're playing coming up, like they're not the strongest, so it's like you don't really get that much confidence out of it. So look, as I said, I am more than willing to put my hand up in 2, 3, 4 weeks' time and go, I got it wrong, and they were just didn't have a warm-up match and they were just lacking a bit of cohesion. But at the moment, when I look at it, I don't see any progress. They look like the same Samoa side that I was watching 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, like, you could even make the argument sometimes they played better 3 or 4 years ago. So, yeah, look, look, for our Samoan fans listening, we want Samoa to be good. We want them to be good because we love the players there. They bring so much to the NRL. But unfortunately, we've got to call it like we see it. We can't sit there and be like, they tough game. They'll be back next week. 60 points. It's tough. It's really tough for how good they are. Anything else about Samoa and England, boys?
No, I think we've just about covered that one.
All good, mate.
Yeah.
All good. Now let's get on to Australia versus Fiji. Really interesting with this one. First of all, I want to give Fiji a massive rap. I know it's what was it, 40, ended up 42-8. But I thought Fiji were competitive for at least 40 minutes of this game. Now, once Australia got their cohesion going together, they were a bit too much to stop. But I think Fiji, they're really making some progress. I really believe that. When you look at their squad, they've got, 4 or 5 NRL players. I think even their NRL players are almost fringe at the moment. I think Kamakamika and Kikau and Api are probably your mainstays. Then you've got a few fringies. Apologies if I'm misremembering 1 or 2 players.
Yeah, Sivo as well. But outside of that, they're all fringies. And Kevin Aguama, yeah.
And so, I think Fiji are building something really a bit special there. I really do. For the players that they have, I thought they did a fantastic job. I really, really did. Now, I think that when you look at that score, if you didn't watch the game, you might go, it was just a complete domination. But if you watch the game, their contact was good. Their line speed was good. Appy, I know he made a couple of errors, but he was still extremely dangerous out of, dummy half. And they looked like, for example, like Brendan Wakeman, he's a fringy at the Dogs, but they still look like they had cohesion. They looked like they were getting to places on the field. I was impressed with Fiji. I really was.
And you have a look through their squad, the fullback, the 2 centres, 5'8" halfback. None of these guys are even in the best 17 at their NRL club, and I thought they did incredibly well in this game. You had the kid I've been talking about for a while, Josh Wong. He made his debut. That's his first game of first-class football. You got to play it against the Kangaroos. Big ask for a lot of these guys, and I thought they played incredibly well. And that's where, despite the scoreline, you've got so much respect for this team and this group of players, what they did in this game. And Fiji tend to do this every single World Cup. They might not win all the games in the world, but you come away with a lot of respect for their squad. So credit to them. They came up against a pretty good Kangaroos side, but, geez, they put a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah, they scored the first try, and it wasn't a fluke or anything. It was a good set-up play by their 7. Who scored it again? Let me check. Valame, Yeah. So, I think Fiji have got a lot. Apologies to keep harping on with Samoa, but Samoa should be at least at this level. At the very, very least, they should be playing that well. I believe they should be playing way better, but Fiji, whatever they're doing, I reckon keep doing it because they absolutely every year are improving and you can see that something is clicking there. There's something that is clicking. They're all seem to be on the same page. They're playing for each other. They get into certain spots. Whereas when you watch the Samoa game, they were all playing with a lot of passion individually, but it just wasn't cohesive. It wasn't together. It was like they, hadn't really played. I know they haven't played much footy together, but Fiji haven't played much footy together either. So super impressive Fiji. I thought they were outstanding. As you said, Guru. Quick shout out to Wong. Now, apparently he's got massive raps on him. Roosters. I think he's a Roosters.
Yeah.
Yep. Massive raps on him. So for him to have his full first grade, essentially a first grade debut, you play in Australia. I thought he was solid. He made 33 tackles. He missed 4, but still 33 tackles, playing your first grade experience. Really impressive. I thought Kamikamitha was fucking outstanding. Yeah. I thought he, going against that Australian forward pack, the amount of times that, you would see the Australian forward pack kind of, one of our big guns would take a run and you'd go, oh, okay, here we go. We're about to get a roll on here. And then, boom, Kamikamitha just stopped them in their tracks and you're going, holy shit, Australia are struggling to get out of their own end. And he was leading the charge there. So, Timmy, what do you think about Fiji?
Fiji were outstanding, mate. They gave absolutely everything they had in this game, and as you said, they scored the first try in the match. And I think we saw with Fiji and Lebanon being so impressive to the point that, they were down 18-4 to Australia at half-time, Fiji. Lebanon were down, I think it was 18-12 after 53 minutes against New Zealand, and it's probably a bit telling late for them that when they don't have, an NRL or a Super League quality roster from 1 to 17, particularly with only a handful of players from those competitions, 80 minutes of football against world-class opposition, it's got to be telling. So they did just about as much as they could up until that sort of 55, 60-minute mark where they ran out a little bit of steam. Maybe there was class from the opposition, but really, they were phenomenal. So they probably didn't have the reps under the belt to go 80 minutes against them, but they should be so proud of what they did, and they've set a platform to really come home strong in the rest of the pool stage.
And this is where you mentioned, obviously, like their 1 to 17 on their bench. I mean, there wasn't a single player that I'd heard of before, but if they had their full strength side, Jacob Saifidi, Daniel Saifidi, Tariq Sims, it's a different footy game all of a sudden. So they are in a tough spot there. I mean, from their starting pack, I think 3 of them hadn't played first grade before.
There you go.
So very impressive knock by Fiji.
Yeah, and that's why I believe, like, whatever's happening there, systems, admins, player development, keep going. And I think Petro Sivanasiva has quite a lot to do with it. I could be wrong, but keep doing it. I was so impressed by Fiji. As you said, going into half-time, still in the game against the Australian squad. And then I think when you really look at the Australian squad play, you go, we are embarrassed with riches, like compared to these other nations. And so for them to do that, I thought it was super impressive. I'm excited for Fiji. I really am. I love watching them play. I love the hymn before the game. They're an exciting nation, and they absolutely did their country proud. There's no denying that. Now, let's get across to the Australian side. Teddy, at 18 tackle breaks. It's unbelievable. The Fox was outstanding. Trell was silky. Valentine Holmes got through a bunch of work. I thought Tina Malawi was outstanding. But the man of the match for me was Harry Grant. He was fucking unbelievable. Come off the bench. He played 42 minutes, had 118 metres, 22 tackles, 0 misses. But, sorry, that's not... He had 46 minutes. That was Paddy Carrigan. He had 46 minutes. He scored a try. He set up a try. Ran for just under 100 metres. He had 5 tackle breaks. He had 2 line breaks. He had 2 offloads, 27 tackles, and 0 misses. Harry Grant was absolutely exceptional. And, as long as his body is good and he's good to go, we are in for an exciting ride this next 10 years. He was fucking phenomenal.
And I think the score was 18-4 at the moment, where Harry Grant, he nailed a 40-20, one of the better ones you'll see. Then the next set he scored himself, and you just see it just broke the heart of Fiji straight away. And it's kind of reminded me of when Harry came on. I can't remember what year it was, 2021, when he came on in that Origin game. And as soon as he stepped on the field, the Blues just went to water. We just had no answer for him. And I've been saying it for a long. I think he's the best running 9 in rugby league by far and away now. He is just incredible, and against Fiji, whatever, he does it in State of Origin as well. It's not a Fiji thing; it's a Harry Grant thing. Like, he is just incredible, and it's crazy to think that Ben Hunt will still be the starting 9, and I completely understand why. But as you said, we are just embarrassed for how much talent we've got.
One thing came to mind watching Harry Grant, and it was when he scored his try, and it's probably an old saying you speak about the best players in the world and even better in the world, like in their eras. I know Harry's not quite there yet, obviously, he's very young, but you talk about them having time, and it's generally, a saying associated with halfbacks a lot of the time, maybe a fullback, Cameron Smith at hooker, just these players who have time. And that it's a thing that you say, it can't be taught, or it's just a gift. And to a degree, it can't be taught, but when Harry Grant darted out for his try, he's got the ball in both hands, got it up above his eyes, he's jinking it one way, jinking another way, his eyes are following it. So what that's doing is the defensive line is sitting there going, shit, I've got no idea which of the 4 options this bloke's going to go. And he's selling 4 at once, which means they have to hold back in D, and you're getting time. So it's like, it's a natural gift, but I'm not saying that time can't be taught in these players. The try he scored, he did that on their line where teams should be rushing up to shut down the play, and they all just held back. About 5 seconds later, a Fijian player shot off his line. Harry went, all right, that's my route, sliced straight through and scored a try. It was his ability to make a defensive player sit back and watch is incredible.
Yeah, and on that play there too, like we mentioned him before, and he'll be a superstar, just be patient, but you could see Josh Wong came up on that play, and before he even realised what had happened, Grant had skipped across 3 players and was on his outside shoulder, and he was gone.
The other thing, the other one on Grant, when he nailed that 40-20, you're just going, we've seen him starting to develop his kicking game. Not probably the strongest part of his game yet, long way from it to be fair, but his short game sort of came a fair way in the last 12 months in the NRL. When he nailed that 40-20, you're just going, dear Lord, like if he gets that into his repertoire, that long kicking game, to accompany, Hughes and Munster, who decent long kicking games, but again, not known for them, Jesus.
And that's what the great players have done for so long. Like whenever Joey and Freddie hit a 40-20, you can bet your dick they're going to lay on a try that next set. And of course, Harry Grant gets out of dummy half and makes him look silly. He's going to be something very special, Harry.
I also thought that Angus Crichton was outstanding. I mean, he's good. He's just elite. Like he's just that step above. Whoever he plays, he's just that step. Like in contact, he was outstanding. Addo Carr, I mean, if you didn't need a man yelling to say, "Oi," that Origin situation, maybe bring me back into the side. He was outstanding. Bala Fox. Talk about that quickly. Now, what I'm going to do is, guys, we'll get through this real quick. We'll get to the New Zealand game really quick. I got to bounce because I got a train to catch to about a 4-hour train. So we'll leave you guys to talk about things more in depth and continue on the show. But I just wanted to let you know, DCE. Did he do enough to keep that spot? Yeah, let's assume Cleary comes and plays well.
I'm not sure how much they'll actually put into this game and the actual performance, but for me, I think DCE had to do enough for me to say, no, Cleary isn't the guy, and for me, he didn't. I still think it has to be Nath. Once you get Isaiah Yeo back into this side, I think you'd be crazy to go in a different direction personally.
I can't believe it's still an argument, to be honest, boys, that DC could potentially be over Nathan Cleary. I heard you boys speaking about on last week's podcast, and I cannot believe people are still saying, is it Cleary or DC? Of course it's Cleary.
Yep.
He's the best halfback and probably player in the world. Like, DC was great in this game, and not surprisingly, he's a world-class, one of the best halfbacks in the world, but Nathan Cleary's better.
Yeah, and I think everyone understands that, and everyone probably agrees with it. But the way that Mal keeps talking, he keeps this conversation going for me. I'm not convinced he is going to go Cleary yet.
Well, that's a thing though. Like, there's some pretty good pundits in the game that are like, "Ooh, not sure," and I don't know whether that's out of respect for DC because everything is done in the game. And look, I've got so much respect for DC, and he's an incredible player. He's outside of the one hiccup with the Titans, he's been a stalwart of setting the right example, all that kind of stuff. Like, he is given so much to the game and been incredible. But what are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? We've got the back-to-back premiership winning number 7 that is absolutely tearing the competition apart, tearing it apart. He won the Clive Churchill last year. Like, what are we talking about? It is insane. Like, again, all respect to DC, incredible. And this is just an opinion. It's not I think he has been amazing. But unfortunately, DC, the most he's gone to in the last few years, a prelim. Now, look, was he better in game 3 this year for Queensland? Absolutely. And I sung his praises to the roof after that game. And if you were to say who was ahead of each other going into, if there was an Australian camp, the next camp, I would have said you probably have to say DC because he outplayed Cleary. But that's one game in how many years now? Like DC Cleary for 3 years has been out and out the best 7 in the game. It's got to be him. I think that if DCE came out and absolutely killed it and was man of the match, then not out of respect, but then you go, yeah, for sure, DCE should be in the conversation, But I thought he was good. He was good, but he wasn't. It wasn't like he was the best player on the field. So I think it has to be Cleary. I really do. And again, this is no disrespect to DC as a player. He is incredible. His career is amazing. But it has to be Cleary. It's his time. Give him the 7 jersey, even though, don't get me started on that fucking number. This numbers debacle, it is an absolute joke. It is a joke. And whoever made the decision, I'm sure they had good intentions, but it is a terrible decision. It is a terrible decision. No one likes it. It doesn't add anything to the game. It adds nothing. Tell me one good thing this gives to the game. One good thing.
I think the only good thing it gave to Mal Meninga was that he didn't have to pick his fucking halfback yet. That's it. I can't think of any other positive that can possibly come out of it. Like I was saying on my podcast the other day, like this is the time where we get to show rugby league to the world. If you haven't seen it before, imagine trying to explain it to people.
I was having trouble.
You're
watching and you're going, you got to. Every time you see a player run the ball, you ask yourself again, like, oh, who's that? Who's that? It is terrible. Change it. Yeah. Shocking decision. I cannot express that enough. Now, guys, quickly, I'll talk about New Zealand really quickly. I just want to get out of the way. Lebanon, absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I would go as far to say is this: tactically, they were as good. Cohesively, they were as good as New Zealand. The only difference was New Zealand were bigger, faster, and stronger. And the physicality that New Zealand could bring, that was the difference. Lebanon were by far, in my opinion, the standout side of the weekend in regards to how many players they have in NRL and what they did. Their game plan was great. Their cohesiveness was great. Their line speed was great. I mean, their forward pack was tiny compared to the New Zealand one. Tiny. And they ripped and teared all game. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Lebanon. I thought they were outstanding. I thought their game plan was great. So is it Michael Chica that's taking care of it? I was super impressed. Now quickly on to New Zealand. Joey Manu was fucking unbelievable. That individual try, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, it was against Lebanon. Yeah, okay, cool story. That was unbelievable. Chip over the top, about 4 tackle breaks. One of the best tries I've seen in a World Cup. And I know we talk about the Greg Inglis throwing back over his, that's one of the greatest ones. But I understand Lebanon aren't Australia, they're not England, but they still had a red hot crack. And I didn't see any other players doing that on the game. I didn't see anyone else taking the mickey out of Lebanon the way Joey Manu did. It was absolutely incredible. I thought Brandon Smith was outstanding. Tarpanet, all day long, even after I think he broke his nose. Nelson came on and brought a lot of energy. Look, the thing with the Kiwis for me, it's just cohesiveness. It's just like the Australian side. Once they started to get into that groove, you go, oh, okay, here is that next step of rugby league. If I had to rate both performances, Australia and New Zealand, I'd probably have Australia just a little bit ahead of New Zealand, but not by much. And I think that, if they were to play each other tomorrow, I would have it at 50-50 essentially, or maybe 49-51 to Australia because I'm biased. New Zealand still did what they did with us, and they had a 73% completion rate. So they again, Australia were just a little bit better, I think, because obviously Fiji is a bit better than Lebanon. But I think the Kiwis, once they just tweak their attack and their line running and their cohesiveness and that, I think they're there. I think they're ready to go. Guru?
Yeah, for sure. I thought New Zealand, it wasn't their greatest game, but I thought Lebanon were fantastic, mate. You spoke then how brave they were. Like, there was a moment in the 45th minute, in about the 50th minute where they made a break down the right-hand side and they kicked back infield, and it was a 50-50 call whether it was going to be a try or not. If they would have scored that, it would have been 18-0 after 18-all after 50 minutes. Like, they were in this contest. You also got to remember, for the last 20 minutes, they only had 12 players on the field. New Zealand scored one try in that time.
While losing one of their 3 or 4 NRL players.
100%. I thought it was incredible from Lebanon. I think that they should be so proud of what they've done, and I can't wait to see how they go for the rest of this World Cup.
Yeah, I agree. Look, boys, I got to go. But you continue on. So you continue on, obviously, previewing and reviewing the round. But yeah, I thought Lebanon were outstanding. I thought the Kiwis, once they just got to sort out their cohesiveness. There were so many times, I think they had 3 penalties with ball in hand. Once they sort that out, they're good to go. So although some may say they're a bit underwhelming, I mean, they were a little bit underwhelming, but I think that like all the key areas that you want from a New Zealand side, super physical, super aggressive through the middle, getting up the field, getting to certain points, they nailed. It was just that last little finishing touch that they were missing. And yeah, massive shout out to Lebanon. But guys, I've got to love you and leave you. I'll see you next week. Anyway, everyone that's listening right now, continue to listen. The boys are going to give a deeper breakdown. Apologies I couldn't stay longer. And I'll see you all next week.
Timmy, I'll tell you what was the one thing that stood out for me with this New Zealand side. Whenever Joey Manu gets into dummy half, wherever you are on the field, you just hold your breath. You sit on the edge of your seat. I was thinking next year, can you imagine when the Roosters are 10 metres out, you got Joey Manu and Brandon Smith. Are they the 2 best players out of dummy half in the red zone in this competition or what?
Mate, can we just not bypass, before we get to how much of a freak Joey Manu is, the fact that you've just been handed the keys to the kingdom, the bloke in a bar kingdom, you've brushed past that pretty quickly, mate. By the time we get through the end of this podcast with our fearless leader, Kempy, gone, you're going to need one of them suitcases you was talking about to carry the tickets around you've gotten yourself. Jesus.
Didn't deserve that, but that's fine. Yeah. Joey Manu, let's go.
Joey Manu, oh my goodness. I'm really intrigued to see how it plays out when they get to some of the bigger games at the end of the tournament, because Joey Manu, like, he just gets better every game he plays, and in some of these softer games that the Kiwis do play, they're not going to be able to tackle the bloke. He's so strong, so agile. It's lovely to watch. But what intrigues me come when let's say they face the Australians come the semi-final, the fact that he's not a noted ball-playing fullback by any means. In fact, he does not enjoy passing the ball. He threw a really good pass for, I think it was a Rapana try, which impressed me. And so it's not to say even that he maybe doesn't have the passing game. It's just Joey Manu's mindset is catch the ball and run. And he generates a lot of second phase play and bust tackles and offloads, but the catch pass that we know is so vital to a fullback's role in the current game, it's not Joey. So they're going to be 2 very contrasting styles of footy when we get deeper into the tournament in, say, a Kangaroos v Kiwis game.
And this is where we all fall over at the stats when he plays fullback 5'8". The reality is, you know, he played fullback, I think, against Canberra that day. He played 5'8" against the Dragons that day. He's now played fullback against Lebanon. Kangaroos is going to be a test that he hasn't come up against at fullback. So I'm very, very keen to see how he handles that. I also can't wait to see this Kiwi forward pack. And this is where I think, once again, credit to Lebanon, this Kiwi forward pack is unbelievable. Bromwich, Brandon Smith, JFH, Isaiah Papali'i, Kenny Bromwich, Joey Tapine. For them to even be in the same ballpark as that forward pack, incredible.
And then you look at the Lebanese forward pack who, you know, with all due respect, I'd hardly heard of a player in that side, in the forward pack. So a lot of their NRL contingent were backline players for them. And they had, I think, Romanos, has he played a game for Miami?
I think he's played 1 or 2 first grade games. Outside of that, I don't think any of them have played first grade. There's been a few guys that have played a few games for Lebanon now, but a lot of these guys haven't played NRL. And coming up against this Kiwi side, like that is close to the best forward pack you could pick in the world, not just New Zealand. That is incredible. So for them to show a bit of fight there, I thought that was incredibly impressive. But I am very excited to see this New Zealand forward pack go up against another one of the big powerhouses over the next few weeks. Yeah, it is. And it'll be interesting. And Kempy touched on before that he had maybe Australia marginally ahead of the Kiwis in terms of their round 1 performances. I've got Australia in front. I thought Fiji were probably a bit stronger a rugby league nation at the moment, particularly on paper, than Lebanon, as gallant as Lebanon were. But
Australia conceded 2 tries, but they were both off kicks. It was in wet conditions. They completed well. It was their first, I think, game in 3 years, was it? And they looked very, very classy. So I had Australia on top. That being said, and another thing you touched on the podcast last week, Guru, but we know New Zealand build into their tournaments. They never fire from the one-off game here or there or early on. They build and they build. So it's not to be concerned with, but it's shaping up to be something special.
And I know it's easy to say the Kangaroos have still got Isaiah Yeo and Nathan Cleary to go in. The Kiwis have still got Jerome Hughes to go back in. And he is by far and away their best 7. I think he's the second best 7 in the world after Cleary. So obviously the Kangaroos have got a lot to come back, but the Kiwis, they've still got an absolute superstar to come back into that side. So I thought Foz was really good when he played halfback in this game. So if you're the Gold Coast Titans, I'd be excited watching that. Thought he moved the ball around well. Everything was great. But getting Jerome Hughes back is going to be massive for that Kiwi side. Now we've got the last 2 games which we haven't spoken about just yet. Italy 28 over Scotland 4. Italy coming in at $4 in that game. Very, very good value if you got on them. A 28-4 victory. Mate, what a month for Nathan Brown. He's gone from unwanted in first grade, seemingly unwanted in reserve grade, playing in an NRL grand final, captain of Italy in this game. What do you think of his performance?
He was really good, wasn't he? And it was interesting to see his transformation from going from the NRL, playing very, very limited games with Parramatta this season. Obviously, he got a stint in the grand final there, but playing as their lock and just the ball playing. Yep. Like, this is clearly a systematic thing coming through Parramatta that they've taught Junior Bolo, Nathan Brown, Ryan Madison. Again, I know there's some pedigrees there with these guys, that there is some ball playing in their history, but Brown's ball playing as that link man at 13 was really, really impressive. So Parra just doing something remarkable there with whoever the passing coach is, and he was impressive as skipper for Italy.
And I don't know if he's still at Parramatta next year. I'm not sure if he is, but if he's available,
I don't think he is he? Or like, I don't know. Who bloody knows?
Surely the Melbourne. If I'm the Melbourne Storm, I'd be looking into that very quickly. He's such a talented young guy. A few other guys that stood out for me in that game. You've obviously got the fullback, who I've spoken about a bit over the last few years. He's in the Melbourne Storm system. Luke Porcelli scored the first try. I couldn't find a market on it, Timmy. Could you fucking believe it? I was filthy when I woke up and saw it. He scored the first meaty. The winger, Jacob Mason, he scored 3 tries. He had a cracking game. He actually bombed the first one of the game as well, so he could have had 4 under his belt there. He was great. The standout for me, that was the 5'8". Jack Campagnolo, I believe it's pronounced. He was sensational this game. I believe he's coming through the reserve grade system for South Sydney. I had a look at his stats today. He sort of played a bit of hooker, a bit of 5'8" last year. Very, very impressive. Scotland, obviously not their greatest performance. They were pretty short favourites here. I think they were like $1.50 or so. So pretty devastating for them. Probably the 2 standouts for me. Ewan Aitken, he set up a try late. Not nice little play. And Kane Lynette, little throwback, playing in the back row for Scotland. I haven't seen the name.
I think having the grand final winning strike centre for the Cowboys was what sort of swayed the odds a little bit in Scotland's favour, but one the bookies got wrong.
Yeah, good to see you and Aiken, though. He had a good solid game and got a reward at the back end, setting up a try there. But yeah, Italy, the little surprise packet coming out of the first week, I think, unless you want to call England a surprise packet. I think Italy, they were the team that probably flew under the radar, that were the most impressive. Obviously led by Nathan Brown, as you said, playing an incredible little link role there in that side. The last game and the only one...
Sorry, I just want to give one quick shout out. Ethan Atoli playing for Italy. Went to school with him at Marsland. He's a cracker bloke. Player. Made 5 tackle breaks, made a break, 115 metres, so good to see a Marsland boy killing it in the World Cup.
One of the great families, the Natalis. They all love it, don't they?
Love it.
Love it. Now, the last game that we haven't spoken about yet, Ireland against Jamaica. I'd be telling a porky pie if I said I got up at 3 a.m. for this one. Ireland winning this one 48-2. Luke Keary, he obviously starred for Ireland. There was a couple of other guys in this side that have played a bit of NRL over the last few years or over in the Super League. Myler, the fullback, I've seen him play a few times. He's a handy player. You obviously had Luke Keary. Jermaine Jolliffe from the Gold Coast Titans. He lined up in the front row. A little throwback, James Hassan, who played for the Cronulla Sharks and I think Parramatta and Manly maybe. It feels like he's been gone a long time. He made an appearance here. Harry Rushton, who of course, I think he's returned to the Super League now, but you can probably talk about him a little bit more. He's a very talented guy that I'm surprised. Did he end up playing first grade? Or
He did, yeah. And he went all right.
I thought he was very good.
Got a handful of games. He's a good player, Rushton. So surprised to see him maybe not starting. This one did come off the bench. And the other one, little mate Brent O'Hagan. I don't think Brent ever played NRL, but he was at the Raiders playing reserve grade. Matty was speaking about a good fella before. Brent, one of the great fellas, plying his trade over. I think he's in the championship over in England and bagged a bit of meat for his country. So a great story there.
And in the most Rugby League World Cup story of the Rugby League World Cup, Ireland made the late decision to start O'Hagan over Joshua Cook from the Canterbury Bulldogs. Yeah. They got their team list in late, so they burnt it interchange before they got on the field. So a bit of controversy to kick off there. Josh Cook, of course, at the Canterbury Bulldogs at the moment. He's off contract next season, though, so he's playing for a contract there as well. Mate, as far as Jamaica goes, scored 2 points, and it should be noted, their first points they've ever scored in the Rugby League World Cup. So they were down about 1,000-0 on halftime, and they took the shot at penalty. So you could tell the boys kind of wanted to put the arms up and celebrate, but obviously they were still in the contest and whatnot. But Jamaica, a side that we haven't seen at the Rugby League World Cup before, from my memory anyway. So to see them score 2 points, still a good knock.
How exciting for them, mate. One of the great stories. Them boys will have this for the rest of their lives. So they're in a Rugby League World Cup. I don't know anything about any of the players, but I'm sure there's some cracking stories that will come out across the course of the World Cup, and good luck to them.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we have still got a few more games left in round one. Tomorrow, you will see Tonga and Papua New Guinea. If you're in Australia, that is 5:30 a.m. Definitely one that I'll be getting up for. Played at one of the great stadium names of all time. Totally wicked stadium. Very creative. And then Thursday, 5:30 a.m., we've got Wales taking on the Cook Islands, and that will round out the first round. I actually think that game will be a good one. The Welsh team, they always seem to surprise at these World Cups. They're always pretty decent. Cook Islands obviously littered with a couple of first graders here and there. And then we roll into round two. So Saturday, the 22nd of October, 5:30 a.m, the Kangaroos open up round two, taking on Scotland. Then Sunday, 12:30 a.m, so pretty much Saturday night, Fiji take on Italy. That one I'm super excited for. They're two teams that impressed me in round one. Fiji, despite losing the Kangaroos, I thought they were really solid. Italy, an upset victory. I'm really looking forward to seeing them go round. Sunday, 3 a.m, England taking on France, 5:30 a.m. Sunday. She can go back-to-back, 3 in a row there on Sunday morning. New Zealand take on Jamaica in what could be one of the great onslaughts of all time, unfortunately.
I think they'll put 100 on them.
I was going to say, will we see the three digits come?
Look, if Ireland are going to beat them 48-2, what are the Kiwis going to do to them?
I took Joey Manu as top try scorer for the Kiwis, so I'm praying his name for that one.
I'll suck him as well. 26-1, you
love that. Then Monday, 12:30 a.m, we've got Lebanon taking on Ireland. Another game that I'm looking forward to. I think that one will be another good one. Monday, the 24th of October, 3 a.m, Samoa taking on Greece. And then Tuesday, the 25th of October, Tonga taking on Wales. And then we round out round two with Papua New Guinea taking on the Cook Islands, 5:30 a.m, Wednesday morning. Mate, is there a game or a matchup of players or something that sort of stands out for you there? It's a bit of a weird week, round two.
Yeah, I mean, look, probably not going to be the most entertaining round of the World Cup. We'll have a result by the time this has gone live, but Morgan Esgray is a player that I've always watched quite closely during his time at the Catalan Dragons, and he is the French fullback, and he was just, with ball in hand, he's absolutely electric. He's beautiful to watch, but he's a tiny little French fella, and defence isn't his strong point, but my God, the bloke can move. So really excited to see how Esgray and the French side go. That's to cap off round one. As I said, we would have had a result by now. And then, round two, I think I'm with you. The Fiji-Italy game, that's with the way Italy performed in particular, that could be tighter than people think, and I think that could be the game of the round. Yeah, just in that Fiji-Italy game, worth keeping an eye on the two fullbacks. Obviously, Taruva from the Penrith Panthers, we know how talented he is, and I mentioned the other one, Polselli for the Italian side. Two guys that have been dominating reserve grade the last few years, who I think are both first grade ready. Taruva, obviously, he's been there, he's done it, and he's played very well, but Polselli, I don't think he's that far off either. So plenty to watch there as far as round two of the World Cup. It's going to be a cracker. Mate, anything else to add? Well, good, mate. I think bring on round two in the West World Cup, and congrats on the debut hosting duties of Bloke in a Bar. Thank you, mate. Let's hit the frog and toe. We good, Matty? Make sure you go out this weekend, grab yourself a case of Bloke in a Bar, get all the stockist lists on the website, as Kempy always says. Shockingly, he's better at it than me. But make sure you go out, grab yourself a case and enjoy round two of the World Cup.